All right, and welcome everybody. The regular town board meeting, January 26, 2015, 7 p.m. We're in the activities room. And would you please rise and join Councilman Tony Metabeer in saying the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the first item on the agenda tonight is a public hearing. And the public hearing is to review the enactment of a local law to establish a temporary moratorium on residential multifamily construction within the Bay Road Office District. Now, the resolution explains the purpose. This moratorium is adopted for at least two reasons. First, a recent engineering study has confirmed that the sewer capacity along Bay Road is limited, and that after current proposed approved build-outs occur, further development would likely require costly additional sewer infrastructure investments. Complementing this consideration is the fact that residential uses typically have more demand on sewer capacity than commercial uses. Second, there is a concern over the diminishing of the desired commercial development that the town has historically favored, especially along the Bay Road corridor, and that multifamily uses overly consume properties that would otherwise be used commercially. And there exist studies that demonstrate that commercial uses bring jobs, help reduce taxes, and require less in governmental services than residential uses. Therefore, the town board has significant concerns regarding the potential impacts of growth and development, particularly as they pertain to sewer capacity in the Bay Road Office District, and believes that this moratorium is necessary in order to allow the town board time to study these issues and consider amendment of our local laws regulating residential multifamily development in this area. This proposed moratorium, which is not going to be voted on tonight, is gone to the county and to our planning board for their review. We will have a public hearing. I'll open that shortly, and listen to people's opinions as we give this due consideration. Now, this does not apply to any project that has already received its approvals on Bay Road. Okay? So, you have Fowler Square, 142 apartments. This is the plan. This has been approved. This moratorium in no way limits or pertains to this project in any way whatsoever. There is Cottage Hill, 148 apartments, 222 parking areas, in an area that was originally envisioned to be merely duplexes. However, it got its approval. It's here. We're not talking about limiting this project at all whatsoever. Here is a plan for Fairfield Professional Offices. This is a beautiful project that's off to a great start already. It is the only professional office subdivision in the town that's been approved, a multi-professional office complex. This is one of the, and this has all got its approvals. And as you know, Condrey, Kelling, Parsons, There are already several lots taken up with professional office use, and in future years, I'm sure other uses will come forward. So it is, the town wishes to maintain this along Bay Road. Now, Bay Road, if you look at our zoning book, is office. Our zoning code says the office district encompasses areas where professional offices are encouraged, and it goes on to explain why. High-quality offices, structures, facilities. It doesn't say multifamily zone, it says office zone. But as you know, it can quickly become multifamily zone and consume all the potential lands that could go to good jobs and so forth. Now, if you look at the cost of community services done by Ohio State University, residential land is a net drain on local government budgets. The average estimates range from $1.15 to $1.50, which means for every dollar collected in taxes and non-tax revenues, between $1.15 and $1.50 gets returned in the form of services by the local government and school district. For commercial and industrial, the ratio usually ranges from 35 cents to 65 cents, indicating that for every dollar collected from a commercial use, they only require 35 to 64 cents worth of services from the local government. So you have to be balanced. Now, we have allowed our fair share, and there's room for more, of multifamily. But in a zone, zoned for commercial and zoned for office, this is something that this board wishes to look at. Now, what can we do? All right, this moratorium is only for 6 months or less. This board could come up with something that they would find satisfactory, would not exceed the sewer capacity along Bay Road, and it could be to reduce the multifamily density allowance. It could be to eliminate multifamily as an allowed use. It could be to increase the Bay Road setback for residential, just multifamily residential, to 500 feet or 700 feet or 1,000 feet. I mean, or you could do a combination of office, or you could do something less. This board wants to look at it. Why? Right here. This is the map plan and report for the Bay Road sewer.
Which one?
And
Which one, John?
supporting Consolidated Water District Extension 2014, prepared by Chris Harrington and JM Engineering.
Oh, that's
And they said that we have the capacity in our sewer line right now for the build out that we project, that we've approved. So that's why this does not affect Fairfield, as it's proposed, Cottage Hill, or Fowler Square. Those have already been approved. It doesn't affect those or impact those. And again, it doesn't impact the other uses that are allowed in the office zone. It only impacts apartments. It doesn't impact banks, business services, convenience stores, convention centers, daycare centers, food services, galleys, health facilities, libraries. I'm not going to read the whole list, but all of those, the moratorium only is restricting multifamily proposals until we get a fix on this. Now, the other thing to keep in mind about apartments The average assessment for apartments, because we don't have a basis of sales, we don't have a lot of apartments that sell, so we don't have a basis for that determination, is based on revenue on a particular project. So the average assessment for an apartment, and I'm not talking about older apartment, I'm talking about the average apartment that you'll see along Bay Road, it's about $38,000. Last time I looked. So, so given the corridor's sewer capacity limitations and the town's desire to encourage commercial growth along this corridor, after all, the zone is called office zone, not multifamily zone, and commercial growth offers good jobs and lower tax burdens. What is the responsible approach as we move forward? That is why this board is seeking some time so that we can responsibly evaluate this issue. Now, any other board members have any thoughts or comments at this time?
I just, Councilman Irish is out of town, but he has asked that something be read into the record. He won't be back till next week. And Caroline, I'll give you a copy of this after, but Councilman Irish's thoughts were that after an extensive sewer study by M&J Engineering, I'm very concerned about the loss of sewer capacity designated for the promotion of commercial development along the Bay Road corridor. I understand there is always the delicate balance of providing available, affordable housing and commercial development. However, I don't feel the town should penalize the taxpayer by allowing unchecked residential or multifamily in commercial districts. By penalized, I mean the non-production of loss of jobs, loss of potential sales tax opportunity, and property tax. I am in favor of a moratorium for multifamily housing on Bay Road till the town board has had an opportunity to weigh the risks and the rewards of using this valuable sewer capacity to benefit a few at the expense of the town taxpayers. And he's asked that be read in the record and made part of the record. So I can, and I'd also like to say that when we first spoke about this, John, I look at it too. I fully support the 6-month moratorium on this as well. I think it's definitely something we've got to look at. I've had an opportunity to speak with several of the constituents out there. There are some issues that we've realized with this study that was done, and there's some issues that weren't realized with this study that's done, that's been brought to our attention, that I think that we need to definitely take a look at and make sure that everything's running at capacity, running where it should be, and that we're not going to go over the capacity, and that we are looking out for the taxpayers. So I fully support your 6-month moratorium.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to just kind of add on to that and say that I'm concerned about the sewer capacity also, and I think that we need to do a little bit more in-depth study with that. But with that said, I'd like to think very carefully about any rezoning, because I don't think that it's fair to keep changing the rules for people. So although I agree with this moratorium, and I think we ought to look at it, there may be some mitigation that can that everybody can live with. That's all I got to say.
Okay. Again, this board is not going to be voting on this tonight. But I will open the public hearing, and we'll have some public comment, and I'll leave the public comment open. So, is there anybody here from the public that would like to speak to this proposed Bay Road corridor office zone moratorium? Yes. Doug?
Absent any hands up, I'll step up to the plate first. Good evening. Doug Hour, 16 Oakwood Drive. I want to say hallelujah, first off, okay? Better late than never. I think what you're doing here will try to correct an error that was made by changing the zone to to allow what has happened. And make no mistake about it, developers are very clever. They're very good at looking at what the rules are and figuring out ways to get around it. Now, what was done was unfair to some people in this room. The Valenti builders had done a very good job with Fairfield Business Park. They followed the rules. Rich Skimmerhorn, in his original layout of office complex, did a good job. Okay, they followed the rules. Now, when what's lost in the arcaneness of this is that when the code changed, it gave developers the ability to put much higher density residential property, which you touched on, John, and I agree with virtually everything that you said as a preamble to this, with the exception of two things, and I'll get to that. But the developers had followed the rules. Everyone up and down Bay Road had done that. And all of a sudden, matter of fact, Follow Square was originally approved for office buildings up there. There were 20 or some odd lots, I believe, 22, 26, whatever it was. Not residential properties. It was approved for that. All of a sudden, when sewer came in, and the reason I'm speaking to this tonight is because I feel an injustice was done because I was one of the engineers that assisted in making this happen. Bay Bridge townhomes had a serious problem with on-site sewer, and I was brought in as business manager to try to come up with a solution. And in a nutshell, what happened was our solution was so good that Rich Skimmerhorn had hired me to build this system in a little more robust manner, not just to take care of Bay Bridge, but to take care of the things that he had in mind to do, which I did. With that, Tom Nace I'm not a PE, I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm not a professional engineer. I didn't take the exam, quite honestly. It's a tough exam. I don't know that I could pass it. But in any event, we did a really, really good job. And you've heard some of this before, John, but for the benefit of the folks out there, they need to know this. When we did this map plan report in 2002, the deal was very simply, rather than just build it for your needs, Mr. Skimmerhorn, or Bay Bridge, for that matter, let's build this in a more robust manner so that it takes care of the needs of the rest of the professional office corridor. And we said, well, how do we do that? They said, well, look at what the existing zoning is, and then figure out what the build-out would be of that zoning, and design a system that will do that. And the town said, we will pay you for the difference in what it costs for you to meet your needs for a sewer system versus the added value for an additional capacity to take care of the rest of the folks on Bay Road. And we did that. And that was done in a map plan report, the Sewer District 7 extension, and done in 2002. That was 12 years ago. We did a really good job on that. Even this report here, which I happen to have a copy of, speaks to that, and it speaks to the subsequent map plans that were done, after that. So, anyway, we had a good design, and basically, I put it out of mind until all of a sudden, and you know this, John, because you were pressured to make this zone change. You were the only one on the board at the time that was resistant to it. This is Murphy's Law on steroids. What happened here was the developers looked at this thing and they said, whoa, now we got a solution here that we can put residential property into this because we now have a sewer. And that's precisely what happened. The moneyed interests then began lobbying the planning board, the town board, and they'll tell you this. They won't admit it. There's a lawyer sitting back here that was involved in this, or at least represents people that, tried to move this agenda forward for residential property. I kind of don't blame them. I think the fault lies with your planning board because they neg deck this stuff. They say, oh, neg deck. Neg meaning that it has a negative, that it will have not an impact on the existing infrastructure. Negative not being that it will impact it, but negatively, I don't know how to phrase that properly.
Not have a substantial impact.
Not have a substantial impact. Well, they were wrong. They were dead wrong because they didn't look at what the original design capacities were of this system. And I'll tell you, it makes me wild to think about this, okay? Because we as engineers, we take things very seriously, okay? We landed a man on the moon. The lawyers didn't do that, okay? We did that, all right? There wasn't a lawyer within 100 miles of Cape Kennedy. Now, and I use that analogy for a reason, but the thing that annoys me, and that's why I'm here tonight, I come out on a cold night. I have no dog in this fight other than we did a Pledge of Allegiance when we talk about liberty and justice for all. That's what I'm talking about here. Liberty and justice is the operative word. Because where is it written that public officials, or any officials for that matter, are obligated to guarantee that land speculators, developers, and entrepreneurs make a profit? You don't want to get in their way, but you don't want to go out of the way at the expense of the residents. Now, how is this at the expense of the residents? Very simple. The design of this thing was finite, meaning it had limited capability based on what we were asked to design. The developer was paid that differential, what it would have cost him to put in a system just to serve him versus to serve the rest of the folks. And all of that was enumerated. Now, these projects, I take exception with two things that you've said. First of all, the Fairfield Park was considered in this, and that there's ample capacity for that. What was built in the back there, which is called Cottage Hill, which Skimmerhorn has bought that property. I wasn't clear whether he owned all of it or whatnot, but I asked the principal of Valenti Builders what it was, and they still own the front part, but the back has been sold. That was never considered in the map plan, was never considered. So that additional capacity, plus the capacity that was 3 times what was in the map plan report, which is something you guys voted on and passed. Even this report speaks to that being illegal, that there was capacity triple what was approved in the map plan. I don't know how you're going to square that with the lawyers on this, but they picked up on it. And we thought that there was something wrong with it when we saw what your planning board approved. We said, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. How do they not reference the map plan, which is an engineering document that says this is how much capacity we need? They threw that right out the window. So I think you've got 2 problems here. You've got a problem relative to what was approved in the map plan and that volume, that's sewer flow, and I think a fairness of who's going to pay for this additional upgrades. And from my knothole in the forest, this is going to be expensive. Actually, there's something when you say, I take exception to this, when you say there is capacity available for these developments. And I'm excluding Fairfield Business Park. I'm saying for Cottage Hill and Fowler Square. I believe there's an arithmetic error in this. They talk about 85 gallons a minute of additional capacity. I can't find, maybe I'm missing something, but I cannot find the arithmetic that adds up to. Because from, again, my knothole in the forest, I see this, that they're at capacity already. So there's really nothing left for anybody. So I think, and that I would like to have a sit down with these M&J folks and have them show that to me, because I did find a typo in this, and I think the math thing that I'm talking about may be relative to that, because they were referring to one subsection of 6.1.2 versus 6.1.1, and I think maybe that's where some of the confusion came in. They did a good job, I'm going to say that. They really did, from a technical standpoint. The writing of it is a little bit tricky. It should have been cross-footed a little better so that you could, like our 8th grade math teachers used to say, show me the work. You know, you should be, even to the, untrained and not an engineer, you should be able to say, okay, well, how does this add up? And you go, dot, 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 plug the numbers in and boom, out comes the answer. I can't find that. Maybe it's just an oversight. I'm sure it's in there somehow, but I have to say I'm suspect of it. So pretty much in a nutshell, without taking a lot more time, that's where I'm at with this thing. And this is troubling to me. And I'm not going to leave this thing go until I'm really satisfied that this is not going to be a burden to the rest of the folks in this Bay Road corridor. Because there are people that were factored in this map plan report that essentially are now excluded from it. It's this, oh, well, you didn't step up to the plate. You didn't, so first come, first serve. I hear all these things. Oh, you know, you didn't ask for it, so we're going to take it. Nonsense. The plan was changed, the zoning was changed in a detrimental way to the rest of the folks. Now, you can fix this, because money can fix anything, but I'll submit that it's not the responsibility of those residents. Keep the developers on the hook on this, guys, and don't let them tell you that, oh, well, we put, in the case of Fowler Square, I've heard them say, oh, well, we put the sewer line up here. Guess what? You have to put a sewer line up anyway, okay? So if they built it with the extra capacity like Skimmerhorn did and were paid for that, I don't know what the deal was. I don't know what the minimum design requirements were for that. But if that was done, fine and dandy. But you'd have to do that anyway. So don't go looking for, you know, all these accolades to say, oh, we did this, you know, bow down and kiss our ring. That's nonsense. There's moneyed interest here. Nobody does anything to invest this kind of money unless they expect a pretty good return on investment. So, you know, I think you're doing the right thing. This moratorium is good because there are unanswered questions here that really need to be answered. And, you know, again, I'm retired. You know, I don't need to. I can go down and spend 6 months with my son's beautiful 2,000 square foot townhome 200 yards from the Atlantic Ocean in Melbourne, Florida. I don't have to do this, you know? But I do, because this is what I do. And it's cost me, John. You know what I did with Siemens, okay? So do you, okay? And the state attorney general is on this, like white on rice, all right? And I'm not going to say much more than that, but there will be people arrested. I guarantee you, okay? And you know I'm right about that, John. I'm right about this, too. I'm not going away on this. This makes me wild. This is malfeasance, non-feasance, misfeasance, whatever feasance you want to attach to it. So I think you're doing the right thing here. Keep it up, and don't let the moneyed interest sway you. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Yes, sir, Jim?
Well, first, let me say that, Jim Mackey, Town of Queensbury. First, let me say that I have no specific interest or axe to grind relative to this particular district. It does make me feel bad that residents or owners will not be able to use their properties as they might have wished, and also I feel for the students here at the university that are going to have to travel a lot further to get residences as the school grows. I'd like to discuss and mention what I think is a broader issue, and that is the sewer system and the planning for the sewer system. I've heard many debates in the last over a year that I've been attending these meetings, debates about the sewer system. As I understand it, the supervisor has always said basically not to worry. There's capacity. Okay? Now, it seems that the action that you're taking tonight, and I'm not for or against that specific action, is evidence that the town should have had a better plan for the sewer system. It seems to me, and I've heard in this meeting a lot of debates, as I said, about the sewer system, that what the town has is a series of studies, mini fixes, Band-Aids, whatever you want to call them. I doubt that anyone in the town, including the people that are responsible for the sewer system, really have a grasp of what that sewer system should be in order to handle what we want the town of Queensbury to be. There just is no overall master plan that I can see. And I think that's a shame. I think, to use the words of the supervisor, the responsible action should have been to put in place a plan for the sewer system in this town that will make the kind of action you're taking tonight unnecessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Bob?
My name's Bob Sears. I'm the realtor involved in the project on Fairfield Office Park. And I want to pass out some information to the board. As you know, that paper's folded over, because when I paper clipped it in the wrong order. So the first thing you're going to see is the folded paper is 9 commercial zones in Queensbury. That's what we should look at first. Okay, there are 9 commercial zones in Queensbury. Office use is allowed in 8 of those 9 zones. In other words, we have a lot of stock for office space, a lot of land available for office space. It's zoned for office use in 9 of the commercial zones that we have in Queensbury. The only zone that is not allowed in is recreational commercial zone. Now, I grant you, if someone wanted to put office in a recreational commercial zone, depending on the type of office it is, they could probably get office use in the recreational commercial zone. Now, that's an assumption on my part, but I wouldn't be surprised if you could do that. There's no other use in the town of Queensbury that has more flexibility as far as the zoning goes than offices. So, in answer to the concern that has been voiced that we're going to hurt the office stock in the town of Queensbury because of the way it's zoned in the Bay Road corridor, that's subject to discussion, I'm sure, based upon the amount of zones that offices are allowed in Queensbury proper. Now, currently, there are over 200,000 square feet of office space available for lease or for sale in the Queensbury-Glens Falls region. It's vacant space. That has not been changed in the last 5 years. I've been in this business as a broker in real estate for the last 38 years in this area. And the biggest problem I have is trying to get possible office users, major office users, to come to Queensbury. I can count on 10 fingers the amount of office users from outside the area that have come into this area in the last 30 years that are more than 5,000 to 10,000 square feet. Most of the office use that is in Queensbury is robbing Peter to pay Paul. They go from one office area in Queensbury or Glens Falls to another one, depending upon how motivated the landlord is. So let's go to the next page. Fairfield Professional Office Park. If you flip the page over, you'll see it. There are 16 office lots available, or was available, in Fairfield Park. 3 of them sold in the last 6 years. Okay? In the last 5 years, we haven't sold any. There's many reasons why. The major reason why is because of lack of momentum for office use in the town of Queensbury or Glens Falls. There's a number of reasons. You could point to the economy. That might be one reason. There is another bigger reason, the consolidation of many office users into an umbrella. For instance, your medical sector is all consolidating under the hospital, or they're consolidating under the Hudson, Hudson River or Hudson Headwaters, okay? Every doctor who would have had an office, or every group of doctors that would have put in offices, probably they are approaching the hospital or they're approaching Hudson Headwaters even as we speak, because the economies of scale and also because of the insurance problems and because of Obamacare. The same holds true with lawyers, lawyers, accountants, almost everybody's going under bigger umbrellas. Currently, 10 of those lots are under contract for unassisted senior housing project. I'd like to make a clarification here. That project, as a result of the town, and I'm not criticizing the town for putting a moratorium on the sewer, but I think part of the moratorium is because of this unassisted senior project in Fairfield Estates, which was done according to code, okay? So anyway, 10 of those lots are under contract for unassisted senior housing. There's going to be, the project called for 70 units. There will be two buildings. Both buildings will be 35,000 square feet. Now, I'm assuming that there'll probably be at most 2 people per unit living in those units. You talk to Mr. Skimmerhorn, he says a lot of them are single people living. They're empty nesters, their spouses either, you know, there's many reasons why, but a lot of them are going to be for single people. Based upon the current zoning codes and projected development so in other words, I'm sorry, let's retract. Number of units is 70 units, that's 140 people living in that 70,000 square foot two buildings. Now, based upon current zoning codes and projected development specification for Fairfield Office Park, over 100,000 square feet of office space could be constructed on the lots that are under contract for the senior housing project. Now, if you extrapolate that a little bit, estimating that there are 8 office personnel per 1,000, that amounts to over 800 people using the 100,000 square feet of potential office space per day. That's just working there. Okay, that doesn't count people coming in and out of that development. For instance, if there is some kind of a facility that requires visitations and so on, which normally there would be with that amount of office users, there'll be a lot more traffic going in and out of there. So, all that being said, this is not a bad compromise for that particular project. It would put less stress on the sewer because you're dealing with 140 people as opposed to possibly 800 people. It would put less stress on the, let's say, on the parking, and on the interconnections within the park itself. Plus, there's still 3 lots available for office use in front. All right, the last page. Senior housing, let's talk about that for a minute. Why is there a need for senior housing in the town of Queensbury? According to the demographics done by Pitney and Bowles, there are over 20,000 people between the ages of 50 and 74 within a 5-mile radius of Bay Road. Now, I'll look all you guys in the eye up here, most of you are over 50. I go into Price Chopper, they all look like I do. I don't want to put everyone in that boat, because that's not a good boat to be in. But what I'm saying is, most of those people, if you go any major store in the area, most of those people are over 50 years old. 20,000 people, 5 square mile radius from where we sit. That's 1.5 times as many people as there is in Glens Falls. You don't think there's a demand for unassisted senior housing in this area or in the town of Queensbury? There are currently less, this is my study, I might be wrong, spend a little time on this. There are currently less than 200 senior non-assisting living apartments in the Queensbury area. Seems to me there's a definite need for this. And that might be a very viable option here in the Fairfield Office Park, especially when you look at there's over 200,000 square feet of available office space for lease that has been constant throughout the last 5 years, and especially when you consider that there's minimal amount of office users, new office users coming into the area. For instance, I'll quit here in just a minute, I'm starting to ramble. The Continental Building in downtown Glens Falls, that's a premier office space. There's 18,000 square feet on each of those floors. They have plenty of parking. They have all kinds of amenities. There are 2 floors that have been vacant since they took over the ownership of that building, which was 5 years ago. There's various office spaces on the other floors that are still vacant. We can't fill that building up, and we need more additional office stock. Thank you very much for your time.
I just want to, Jonathan, just for a minute, you made reference, Bob, to the second page, I believe the second page of your, in reference to 100,000 square foot of office space, and that 800 people using 100,000 square foot of potential office space.
Right.
And I want to get back to what we're at,
Right.
and where we're at. I don't think any of us are battling the housing. I think we're battling the sewer capacity.
I understand
That's the
that.
thing that we've got to get into. And when you go to that, you mentioned 800 people using 100,000 square foot of potential office space. How many of them are going to use a bathroom in the office space? And the question is, if you put residentials on this property, it's going to be the bathrooms, it's going to be the showering, it's going to be the cooking dinner, it's going to be washing the dishes. So that's the stuff that I know personally I want to take a look at to see what the difference between that and what office space is going to be. So, I mean, I
understand.
we get back to that, we even that out. But
Right, well, I'm just throwing out numbers
Okay.
for you to be aware of, and thank you.
yep, thank you.
Bob.
Good evening, Dan Valenti, Legacy Land Holdings. I'm the owner of the property. I think that is probably, obviously, mostly affected by this. I think Bob was trying to just fill you in. This is a little different. We're kind of looking at this more, my concern with this whole moratorium is that the bigger picture, as stated, that we're looking at a zoning change, potential zoning change or alteration in that office zone. I have no problems with people looking at the sewer system. I want to take you back even further than Mr. Howard did, because I have a history here. I grew up with this property as a second generation there since the early 80s. This problem has stemmed from the town, not this current board, obviously, but many years ago, the sewer district was supposed to be created there properly. It was never created properly. There was a parcel we had set aside for the town to put a pump station on the front of Bay Road. We were going to donate to the town so they could do that. However, things worked out, and developer got involved, the sewer system got adjusted, was constructed. I don't think in the best interest of everybody that was there at the time. The Valenti family, my father and predominantly, fought to have the sewer system created appropriately and in a proper manner, where the town owned the pump station from the onset, constructed everything from the onset, and did it more or less above board. It was never created properly. So I'm on the record for that. I agree with it. If you need to take a look at it, that's fine. My issue is the end result. Again, I'm concerned about a zoning change. And I'm going to give you some more history here. Unfortunately, I hate to drag everybody through this, but because that property zone's probably changed more than 7 or 8 times since we've owned it, back and forth, vacillating back and forth. From the time my parents owned the property, and the Bay Bridge Townhouse community was created, there was a master plan for that development itself, not the town master plan. And the townhouses were projected to go right from Bay Road all the way back through where Cottage Hill is now being constructed. It was always a 4, 6, or 8 unit multifamily complex from Bay Road all the way through that entire parcel. That was the master plan. And we were going in at phases and getting phases approved. I'll give you a little more history. As we were developing the property, and the economy turned in the late 80s, and we couldn't sell multifamily houses, that zone currently allowed us to go to single-family little villas, is what we call them. So they still had maintenance as townhouses, but you were allowed to have total individual, like an individual little home, which you see there out Gentry Lane. We were in the process of constructing those. They were selling fine. The market was doing well. The town came in and changed the zone. I was in the middle. I had contracts. I was in the process of building. I came in for permits, and they said, we're sorry, we changed the zone. You can't build those anymore there. Okay? So where I'm trying to go with this is the town creates a lot of these issues. We would have continued with those at that time, but it wasn't allowable use. I had to go in there with an attorney to fight to finish to build the ones I had under contract. So then they changed the zone to allow us to do multifamily there again. So that's what we have. Now we don't like multifamily. I don't know. The problem I have is every time we do something, then the rug gets pulled out from under us. I don't want the rug pulled out from under me here. This moratorium is more about you saw a project come on to the in front of the town, and you don't want to have senior housing or apartments or whatever you call it there anymore, and you want to have time to change the zone and pull the rug out from under me. That is not fair.
I don't think that's fair. And I'll tell you, from my perspective, that's not a fair statement at all.
Okay.
I come into this fairly fresh, 8 years off from the County Board of Supervisors into this town board. And the first thing, I know Doug Irish, myself, and Brian, when we first came in, Tony and John were here, but one of the first things said we wanted an independent sewer study done on Bay Road. We were the ones that went after getting this independent study done on the Bay Road because we knew there were issues. We've talked to people who said there were issues. So we had our independent study done. Well, since that independent study's been done by M&J, there's still some other issues that, as far as I know, I'm concerned, I think Brian and a few others and John and everybody else are concerned, there's some other issues that weren't quite addressed in the M&J study that we think and we believe need to be addressed that we're going to address. So I don't think it's fair to say, I know I didn't come in here looking to pull the carpet out from underneath their feet, and it's not the one project that's down there that I'm concerned about. In fact, I know there's another project getting ready to come up for a housing project across the road from you down there. I just want, personally, I know I want to slow down. I want to see what we've got, see where we're going. If there has to be some corrections made, then we'll make some corrections. If there doesn't have to be, if everything's fine, fine, all well and good. But this is going to give me the opportunity to take a look at this and say, this is the way to go, or this isn't the way to go.
Okay.
So I don't think it's fair to say.
All right, well,
that,
fair enough, but from my perspective, that's how I feel, okay? And I know this project hit there, and then the timing is awful suspicious for me, and I feel that the end result is not going to be anything that, I can tolerate at this stage. It's really been a long, drawn-out battle. As Bob has said, I've been sitting there, and I'm going to give you some dates. I purchased a property in 2002, which is about the time these sewer things were going on. I actually got the project Fairfield Professional Park approved in January of 2008. We've sold 3 lots. We sold 1 lot in 2008, 2009. I sold another lot in the 2 lots in 2010. That was the last lots we sold there. So I've been holding, I've been carrying this thing for another 5 years, and I know everybody's talking dollars and cents and how is it going to cost the most, and the developer usually does step up to the plate somewhere down the line. A lot of times we're forced to, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's all fine and good. I'm going to tell you right now, the time I get done with this thing, I've got I'll give you some more numbers. In 2004, 2005, my taxes on the property were $13,500. At in 2005-6, we actually had a reduction in them, so they were right around 10,000. In 2006, 2007, they doubled to over $20,000. I didn't have an approval at that point. Then they kept increasing, and then out of my approval, naturally, they jumped a little bit. I'm over $24,000 a year. I got over $250,000 in taxes in this property. I have 3 lots sold. All right, and that's, I know, too bad for you. It's my investment. That's fine. Right, I'm a big boy. I can handle that. But I have an opportunity. I have a contract on a parcel, finally, after 5 years, to do something with it, and I don't want the rug pulled out from me. That's all I'm asking.
Okay.
I have no problem with checking the sewer district. Cottage Hill, yeah.
And you went through the process, you got
Yep.
approved for 148 apartments on
That's
the
correct.
property that originally was intended to be duplexes, as you pointed out earlier in your speech.
It was all multifamily.
And you sold this to a particular local developer,
Yep.
which is all fine and dandy.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's not enough. You want to sell Fairfield professional offices to the same developer so that another 70 apartments can be built. Now, in total, these apartments haven't been, well, one, Cottage Hill is underway, but you're talking about 2 approved projects, and I'm not complaining, I just, here are the numbers. 290 apartments forthcoming along Bay Road right now, and you're saying that we should give up professional offices because you haven't been able to sell them in a bad economic time, and the times are getting better, for another 70 apartments. That would be a total of 360 apartments.
It's, as a
just
property,
on the- Just on the west side of Bay Road in about a 1 mile stretch.
that's what the property is zoned for. I mean,
Well,
it's,
that's
we
what
meet
we're
the
here for.
criteria.
We think it was zoned
Exactly. This
properly.
isn't about the sewer. This is about the zone. And this is the caveat to get to zone change. That's how, and this is what's going on here. And I don't like it. It's
sewer-
obviously very upsetting to me. And John, this is my livelihood. This is how I work very hard to pay my tax dollars. I've never been late paying a tax dollar. I've paid based on the sewer district being there, which I was never originally included in. I had to buy purchase in to be part of that sewer district. I laid that money out in advance. We didn't know what we were going to use there or put there. I bought 6,400 gallons for the front, and I bought 6,400 gallons of usage for the back. That's my capacity. Nobody can use it. I'm entitled to use that. I haven't even come close to using that. Everybody's worried about maxing this capacity out for the sewer district. You got another year before anything gets close to being maxed out on that sewer district. There's no way. Richie's got another better part of a year on Cottage Hill, probably before he's online fully. And we know Fowler Square's not doing much right now. So I don't,
And you know
there's
what,
time
Dan?
to address it without.
But right now, we have limited capacity in that sewer line. We're all here, we all agree on that topic. And we all agree that additional apartments are going to exceed the capacity at some point in time. Now, that's based on the MJ engineering report. Now, as we allow things to build out, and we see your previously owned Cottage Hill development build out, Fowler Square build out, and we check the capacities, and we find out there's much more capacity than we ever thought. Then we can rethink this whole thing. But for now, we have to deal with what the facts as we see them now.
John, I don't have a problem if you want to approve a project contingent upon making sure he has the sewer capacity needed. I don't want the zone
Well, we
change.
don't want to lose professional.
That's what I don't want.
All right.
Okay? I mean, that, and like you
Dan,
said.
I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I know you do. And I know you're not worried about my livelihood, John, but I'm telling you right now, I don't have a pension. I don't have a nice pension. This is my pension, and unfortunately, I don't want to sit here for another 10 years trying to sell professional office lots that I can't sell and give you another $250,000 of my pension. It's not fair to me. That's how I see this, okay? I really want to be able to move forward, and if you want to take time for the sewer, I'm fine with that. I just don't want a zone change.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak to the proposed moratorium on apartments in the office zone on Bay Road. I'm leaving the public hearing open, so written submissions, and when it comes back to the board at a later date, it will remain open. So, before we move on, is there any last thoughts on behalf of the board? Okay.
John, if I could, I just have a question. Are you tabling the public hearing to a date certain, or will you re-advertise?
No, the public hearing is open, remains open.
Or will you re-advertise if it goes to another date?
It remains open.
It's still open. It's,
John?
we noticed this one.
And what, are we waiting for decisions from the county, is that
Correct.
correct?
And we're hoping to have them before our
Planning
February
board
9th.
and-
Okay. Okay, and that's why it's remaining open?
Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me, John, so
But they don't have to.
it's open now, but you anticipate it being closed and moving forward with some decision concerning the moratorium, at what date? Do you have any idea?
I don't know if we can get this together by February 9th. We'll try.
But you figure within the next 30 days?
Yeah. Yes, Bob.
That's all.
Within the next 30 days. Okay. All right. Having no more public input at this time on that topic, I would like to review the resolutions. There are 15 of them tonight. I will briefly explain them. There is an agenda down here if you'd like to follow along. And then if you'd like to speak to any of the resolutions, you're welcome to do so. And then at the end of the meeting, after correspondence, we'll have privilege of the floor where you can speak to the town board on any topic, town topic. Okay, resolution 3.1 is a resolution, well, would you like to read it, Caroline? And
Sure
I'll
can.
explain it.
Resolution designating environmental review, certifying officer for New York State Home Program, and determining that Town of Queensbury Housing Rehabilitation Program is type 2 action under New York State secret regulations.
Okay, this is for our New York State Office of Community Renewal, and it's for our single-family housing rehabilitation program, where we are declaring it in terms of secret as a type 2. And we're declaring Stu Baker, our senior planner, as the environmental review certifying officer. Okay, resolution 3.2.
Resolution authorizing USA Triathlon to conduct 2 duathlon races.
All right, this is a USA Triathlon. This is a sponsor. The event is a duathlon. There's going to be 2 of them, both on Sunday, May 3rd and May 10th, from about 7:30 a.m. to about 9:30 a.m. They begin at Haviland Road, and they have various circuits. And since they use town roads, the highway supervisor and superintendent has reviewed these plans, and they also have their insurance certificate. And so all they need is this town board's approval to go ahead and use town roads for these races. Resolution 3.3.
Resolution authorizing Adirondack runners to conduct 29th annual Shamrock Shuffle road race.
Okay, this is the 29th year. And I'm there almost every year. I think out of the last 10 years, I've only missed one. But this is Sunday, March 22nd. Starts around 11 a.m. At Glens Falls School and ends at Glens Falls High School. But it does use the roads of the town of Queensbury. And again, the highway superintendent has approved this. They have their insurance, and it's up to this town board to approve the town road use before they can go ahead. Resolution 3.4.
Resolution authorizing agreement between Warren County acting for and on behalf of Warren, Hamilton County's Office for the Aging, and Town of Queensbury.
All right, this is $6,607. to provide, and it's behalf of Warren and Hamilton County, to provide transportation for the elderly in the northern part of town. The southern part of town is, we have an agreement with the Greater Glens Falls Transportation Council, we've recently approved that. But this is for special events and other areas that's not reached by the GDFT. And the cost, we share it with others, and our cost is $6,607 to provide transportation for various events for our elderly in Queensburg. Resolution 3.5.
Resolution authorizing agreement between Town of Queensbury and Glens Falls Animal Hospital.
Okay, this is an annual thing. In the past, we have contracted with Glens Falls Animal Hospital for the animals, boarding of animals as necessary, euthanasia and cremation services, and the town has paid for these services that's provided by the animal hospital in accordance with the schedule of fees, which is attached. Councilman Doug Irish, who is away on business, could not be here with us, but he wanted us to assure the public, so we added the wording, that the town of Queensbury will attempt, as we always have, by the way, to exhaust all revenues to place healthy animals with foster families and foster homes or forever homes, with rescue groups, with Warren County SPCA. We'll make every effort to avoid euthanasia, and euthanasia as a last resort if we can't find a proper home for these animals. So this is a contract between town and Glens Falls Animal Hospital.
Is that the revised one?
Yes.
Okay.
Didn't you get a copy of the revised one?
I did.
Okay.
And John, I
Just wondered what
think,
the revision was.
and I spoke to Jim today, and I think,
Okay.
were you gonna mention the cats as well? He's gonna start working with
Yes,
cats now,
well-
feline, which has been an issue for the town over the years, and I'm glad to see that finally
Well, that's a good point.
we're gonna address them.
Yeah, we changed the wording in the contract to be animals, not just dogs, as it was in parts. So now it's animals, it's consistent with the resolution, it's consistent with what we historically have been doing. Okay, good point. Resolution 3.6.
Resolution authorizing agreement between Town of Queensbury and Economic Development Corporation, Warren County.
All right, and this is our annual agreement with the EDC. Whose president, Ed Bartholomew, is here, should any of the board have questions at some point in time. And this is for services that the EDC provides to the town. The town used to have its own EDC. It was tremendously more expensive than this. And we contracted with the EDC to provide economic development services from the county. And it's a lot less expensive. This is $114,000 per year. So every year, every contractual year, the EDC proposes a scope for economic development and services and initiatives. And I'm certainly not going to read the multiple pages, but I'll give you an idea of what it includes. Business and investment recruitment, activities focused on lead generation, prospects, project management to include development of targeted primary businesses, attraction marketing plan for the town, implement primary business retention and expansion strategies focused on partnering leadership with existing operations in the town that are part of the corporate structure with headquarters outside of the area to ensure that existing operation site is considered for new corporate capital investment opportunities, manage all stages of prospect and project sales process to include identifying resources necessary to close the deal in the town of Queensbury. On the topic of business retention, activities focuses on retaining existing employers and employment opportunities for the town, including identifying problems and solutions to ensuring operating success, building relationships to enhance connectivity between the community and existing employers, identify trends, threats, potential closure, significant job losses, and work to bring resources and solutions forward to mitigate negative impact and reverse the threats. And then project management activities include management and administration of the Empire Zone Program benefits, and it goes on. And certainly, it talks about business improvement and reporting that the EDC does for us, and it goes page after page of things that the EDC does for the town of Queensbury in terms of economic development. Okay. Resolution 3.7.
Resolution authorizing agreement between the town of Queensbury and Queensbury Land Conservancy, Inc.
Okay, every year, we help the Queensbury Lands Conservancy with its administration costs, and it is $20,000. And this is a contract with them. And so that's basically what that is. Resolution 3.8.
Resolution authorizing engagement of Cost Control Associates, Inc. to audit town utility and/or telecommunication bills.
All right, our telecommunication bills, as you know, we're going through a change of IT situations. We're now outsourcing our IT situation. However, our phone system is very complicated, and maybe it should not be. I mean, we deal with First Light, we deal with another company called Cornerstone, we deal with Verizon on our land phones. Now, we're wondering if we're involved in a situation that is financially the best relationship we could be in. So we are proposing to contract with Cost Control Associates. They will audit this utility and make recommendations. And the conversation was, and we got a boilerplate contract that needs to be altered, and I'll suggest that in a minute, that Brian picked up on. And this is to review our telecom local services and our telecom long-distance services. And if they find a savings for the town of Queensbury, they will get, and that savings is up to $125,000, they get 45% of that savings. They get nothing if they find no savings, and they only get money and 45% of the savings for the 1 year period. So the 1 year period that we understood it to be in this boilerplate, and I'm not pointing fingers, it just happens. Under the paragraph, I pointed out to Bob, a client approved cost reductions, anything that refers to 36 months actually is a 12-month period, and that was the agreement. So if, according to what Brian suggested, and thank you, Brian, that's a good catch, that we change 36 months to 12 months because that is the understanding that we have with Cost Control Associates. Okay, that's Resolution 3.8. Resolution 3.9.
Resolution authorizing agreement between Town of Queensbury and Cellco Partnership, DBA Verizon Wireless.
Okay, now, this is related to the next one, Resolution 3.10. So if you read Resolution 3.10, Caroline, I will explain both of these together because that's the way it has to be done.
Resolution authorizing purchase of iPads.
Okay. We now have a new software called Energov. And it's a Tyler product. It will increase the efficiencies of our community development department and our building and codes department because it allows mobile application. So this will allow inspectors to issue documents such as permits and violation tickets in the field right at the job site. And it will allow for the most direct routing of inspectors' schedules and so forth. That goes on a lot of benefits to being out in the field. Now, what we need is, though, we need a wireless connection. Brian, chip in anytime. Okay. He's the IT guy. And so we need to establish a relationship with Verizon's partner, who is Cellco. to establish these wireless plans so that these iPads can be activated out in the field. So, what will be the prices? All right, we are allowed to piggyback on other prices, and the lowest prices are those administered by the state of Nevada, so we'll pick those. So this resolution authorizes us to make an agreement between the town and Cellco Partnership, and their prices have to be aligned with what they agreed to do with Nevada for the purposes of activating the iPads out in the field. So these two resolutions, 3.9 and 3.10, go together. 3.11.
Resolution authorizing reinstatement and appointment of Carleen Ramsey as Real Property Tax Service Assistant.
Okay. Carleen Ramsey was in Building and Codes. She wanted to make a change. It's okay with civil service. We went through that, and it was quite a gauntlet, but we made it there, and Carleen is now, or will be officially up with the assessment office if we approve this resolution. 3.12.
Resolution to amend 2014 budget.
Okay, this is end of the year stuff. It's a lot. These are due to bills still being paid at 2014 expenses. This will probably go on even to our March meeting. So this is just straightening out the previous budget. So there's a list of appropriations and the switching of codes to the more appropriate code levels. Okay, and that's what that resolution does. Resolution 313.
Resolution setting public hearing on 2015 Emergency Ambulance Services Agreement between Town of Queensbury and Bay Ridge Rescue Squad, Inc.
Okay, this is a one-year contractual and budget agreement. Basically, operations, insurance, debt service are the same as they were in 2014. Paid staffing, which was $203,117, is now an additional $20,000 for paid staffing. So the total is $223,117 for paid staffing for Bay Ridge. This contract also includes, and the squad has mentioned they're quite comfortable with this, the paragraph 14, the squad agrees to participate in an EMS committee, which we've described before. It would be nicer, it'd be nice, and we're going to work towards this end, to get the 3 EMS squads to work together, to cooperate, to improve and increase efficiencies, not only on maintenance, but also on the paid service, maybe even vehicle use. So it's an effort to try and get the 3 squads working together for the benefit of the town. And they're all willing to do this. So this is a new initiative. It'll start in a couple of months. They've already called me and they're eager to already start this committee. So am I. So and this is setting a public hearing. This isn't approving the contract or budget, setting a public hearing for February 9th. Okay. Resolution 314.
This is a resolution authorizing purchase of 2014 F-150 4x4 pickup replacement truck for the town water department.
Okay, the water department has a 2006 Ford F-250 truck that is being retired, and it will be put out to bid. It has over 100,000 miles on it. Maintenance has been expensive. So this is a resolution giving the water department permission to buy a new 2014 or newer, sometimes picking up the 2015 is a better deal, Ford F-150 pickup truck from Henderson Ford, who were the low bidders, for $22,515.23 for the truck. They would also like to spend $359.10 for additional undercoating to make sure that the truck lasts as long as at least the last one, for a grand total of $22,874.33. Now, if you think you can go out and buy a brand new Ford F-150 truck for that price, good luck. It's a good price, and it's part of the vehicle replacement program, so that's what that resolution is.
And they picked the lower price.
And they picked the lowest price. Resolution 315,
Resolution approving audited bills warrant of January 27, 2015.
okay, the town board, in order for us to pay the bills, this is a warrant with a run date of January 22nd and a payment date of January 27th, and a total of $1,790,518.99. And that's the last of the resolutions. Is there any town board would like, before I open it to the public, any clarifications, anything?
I just want to say, I'm glad we're moving along with the HUD funding.
Yeah.
Looks like there's got 12 places chosen between Ward 2 and Ward 4 to help them with their insulation, their windows and stuff, and get them up to par. So I'm glad to see that
Yeah.
that's moving along.
It is. Anybody from the public like to speak to any of the resolutions, 3.1 through 315? Yes, sir. Jim?
I just have one question, and a yes or no answer would suffice.
All right, please give your name for the sake of the...
Jim Mackey, Town of Queensbury. Relative to 3.6, you outlined the extensive list of services. My question is there anything in that list that includes a measurable, definable, achievable goal? Something that you can grab onto and say, this is what was committed to, and look at whether or not it was achieved? Or are they just services provided? Yes or no?
Well, it's not that simple. To be honest with you, Jim, Ed come in and did a very nice presentation.
I was
to us.
here.
And they were back in at the workshop last week. And we've got 3 parcels, correct me if I'm wrong, and I think there's 3 large commercial parcels that they're out there advertising right now for us to get rid of.
Oh, I understand that's a service being provided.
Right.
I'm just asking, is there anything achievable, like a brochure or this or something like that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's got a
Can you give me an
video.
example, please?
I mean, I'll give you an example. Create new small business loan program for Queensbury.
By when?
They're doing
This
it
year,
now.
this is this year's contract.
They're doing it now.
Okay.
Ed, did you bring any brochures with you?
What's that?
I'm asking Ed if he but there are
Jim,
some-
I think he has, I think Ed has CDs and stuff available, don't you, Ed, that if you could take a look at? I mean, there's great,
I don't need a review of the services.
Okay.
I was just looking for something other than just a long list of
Okay.
services.
As an example, one of the list of comparisons, Jim, is the fact of the number of loans that are provided throughout the county, but more importantly within the town of Queensbury, to emphasize the number of loans that are being provided within the
Yeah,
town.
well, Ed, this is recorded, so they can't
All right.
pick it up if you're back there.
One of the examples of a recordable comparison is to look at the loan capabilities to stress and work with the town of Queensbury in the development of loans through the course of the year. In 2013, there were no loans provided at all by EDC. In 2014, there were several loans and some major loans to businesses within the town of Queensbury, such as to Martha's for their expansion, for increased productivity and for increased expansion of some operations that'll make them operate year-round in an increase in employment, as well as to provide some assistance to Sutton's for some refinancing and marketing concepts. Another example is working with Reliable Racing for a line of credit to work with their manufacturers overseas, as well as the vendors here in USA in those areas. Those are 3 representative loans that we undertook through the cooperation of the Warren County LDC on behalf of the town of Queensbury. We are actively working on the west side of Exit 18 in the area of Kerry Park, as well as Native Textile, the former Native Textile building, which is one of the premier buildings in Warren County at 116,000 square feet. We're working closely with Steve Borges, who was the rental person in Empire State Development, and we have been working with one firm from New Jersey in that particular site location. So we're also working with the Queensbury Board and Warren County on a number of properties in the town of Queensbury, such as the Business Industrial Park off of County Line Road, where we have Hacker Boat, which will be going into that location, as well as actively working with the town as you develop your future development plans for the Ciba-Geigy site on Lower Warren Street. That's a great location for some industrial use. It's got rail, and it's proximity to, obviously, to the Warren County street in those particular areas. So those are some of the activities that we continue to work on and market specifically for the town of Queensbury, as well as trying to work with the city of Glens Falls and Queensbury in increasing your sewer capacity throughout the town, but particularly on the west side for the development in that Cary Park. That is going to be a prime example of where you're going to be seeing growth coming up because of the proximity to the Northway.
And that's one sewer system we're planning.
Yes, that is correct. The design is already into the State of New York Department of Transportation to be able to decrease the elevation of the pipe that will allow the capacity out to the Cary Park.
And thank you, Ed, for working with us on that, because we have looked at worst-case scenario on the Main Street corridor. This board knows what they would like to see, and we're not thinking small. And we want to be inclusive of other industrial opportunities, such as the Cary Industrial Park, such as West Side Auto, and along the western, or Corinth Road, at least the eastern side of Corinth Road. And I know that you're networking not on just a local level, but on the economic council level, the capital region level, the state level, and even the international level. And so you're one of the busiest guys I know, and I appreciate you spending the efforts on Queensbury.
And I think one of the things I liked that you mentioned to us at the workshop was there was one company that struggled a little bit with a bank getting the funds to do some of the things they needed to do, where your company was able to help them out and get them funds. So I kind of like that there's an alternative other than having to go to the bank. There's, the Economic Development Corporation that we're funding and we're helping fund and we're sponsoring, and so I like that.
I said this at the workshop, that 82% of all jobs that are created come from existing businesses. Mm-hmm. And it's equally important to try to bring new businesses in, but we can't forget the veteran on the block, such as our opportunity that we worked with Finch Paper in order to obtain $1 million grant. We know that many people that work at Finch Paper work throughout our region, and particularly in the town of Queensbury as well. And one last project that is very important for the economic growth of our region is to work and obtain funding to do a revised traffic study at Exit 20. That's a very important regional project from a tourist point of view and from an economic development point of view for sales tax to the county and to the town of Queensbury.
All interlaced with the Adirondack Regional Council, which you also had, and so we're putting us into the bigger picture and for the benefit of the whole region.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Ed, for all your efforts.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions as pertains to any of the resolutions being proposed tonight? Seeing none, any thoughts, comments on any of the resolutions by members of the town board? Is there any resolution that you would like to have pulled for an individual call? Okay, having none, do I hear a motion to approve resolutions 3.1 to 3.15? I'll introduce.
Second.
Introduced by Councilman Medevere, seconded by Councilman Van Ness. A roll call vote, please, Caroline.
Mr. Medevere?
Yes.
Mr. Clements?
Yes.
Mr. Van Ness?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yeah. Okay. Any correspondence?
I have none.
Privilege of the floor. Any member of the public tonight that wishes to speak to the town board about any town topic is welcome to do so. Doctor?
Good evening, Dave Judkins, Butler Pond Road, Queensbury. I was wondering if, I obviously was not here at the public information meeting regarding Just Bev's plans to use Butler Pond Road for trucking. I was wondering if, it's been 10-plus days now, I was wondering if you could give us an update as to where that stands regarding them using the property for the purpose of operating a business in a 10-acre land conservation zoned area.
Well, the only update that I really have to tell you is we had a town meeting on that Friday night, and I understand you were out of town on vacation, but the meeting was very thorough, very lengthy, very in-depth, and basically Just Beverages wants to, if I could sum up the meeting in one sentence, wants to respond to citizen concerns. So now, they have not submitted anything to the town, but I understand they will be soon. That'll start a process. We'll sit down with their presentation, once we have it, with their attorneys, and with the members of the town board, and see what is the process that would be best for the town and community.
Has there been a determination by Mr. Brown, the zoning administrator, as to whether this use is within the current zoning laws as written?
Well, he doesn't have anything in writing, and so he has nothing yet to make a determination of what the exact use is.
Mr. Stroud, have you spoken to Mr. Brown about this issue? And if so, can you share the general context of that discussion?
The answer is yes, I have talked to our zoning and planning administrator, Craig Brown, and his answer was, we have not received anything in writing, no document from Just Beverages explaining exactly what they're planning on doing. And we can't do anything until they do. But we understand that we should receive that submission shortly.
That was the discussion per se? I
And
mean,
it's the same discussion that I had with you before. Until they submit something, we can't evaluate it.
right. Have you had any discussions with Mayor Diamond regarding this issue?
Yes, I have.
Would you be willing to share those with the?
Mayor Diamond would very much like to see this project go ahead. He understands that there are resident concerns. He wants those concerns responded to, but he certainly would like to see Just Beverages become an operating enterprise somehow, some way.
Was it just you and Mr. Diamond? Were there any other board members present, or have they been?
Which meeting are we talking about?
With you and Mr.
I've
Diamond.
had several with Mr. Diamond. Not necessarily on this topic.
Well, I'm just referring to this topic.
It was just me and Mr. Diamond.
Okay. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just trying to get a sense of where things are and how they're moving across. Were other members of the town board notified or in some way informed of the context or any decisions regarding those conversations with you and Mr. Diamond?
I was
What's that?
I was just going to say, I was at the meeting that they had. So I listened to the presentation, listened to what the public had to say.
I was referring more to meeting with the town supervisor and the mayor of the
Mr.
city.
Judkins?
No.
Or Dr. Judkins?
It's okay.
The mayor, as usual, called me up, said, I'd like to meet. I said, fine. Topic wasn't mentioned. This time it was my turn to go to his office. He comes here, we are trying to alternate this.
It's good.
And so I said, sure, I've got some free time. What time it was, 2 o'clock on a Tuesday or something. I said, I'll be over. And he came over, and it was a very brief conversation. And he said that he would, just very supportive of Just Beverages and would like to see that go through fruition. I explained to him just what I explained to you. So we have nothing in writing that explains what they're doing, so we can't make a response until they do. And then once they do, that'll start the wheels turning.
Although maybe we should say that Jim
Ziplon.
Sipian.
Ziplon.
He, at that meeting, he offered to anyone that wanted to come down and talk with him. He lives up over the Morgan Company. And I've got his card right here if you want to. He's willing to talk to anyone that would like to talk to him about the project, if they have ideas, suggestions.
Well, Mr. Clements, I appreciate that, and I'm sure he would, but that's not really what this is about. What it's really about is the use that they want approved for a 10-acre land conservation zoning area. And if not, how is that going to happen? And you may have noticed in the Post-Star that there was as the Post-Star put it, a new level of cooperation between the city and the town. This is a city that had tickets written to Queensbury residents for walking on the watershed property about 3 months ago. One of my colleagues had a ticket written for walking on the property. This is the same city that was not allowed to change the zoning on the property between Peggy Ann and Potter Road. So my question is, should the citizens of Queensbury be concerned that this great level of cooperation that's espoused by JustBev to try and improve the area and assist with walking trails, et cetera, should they be concerned that that will somehow influence the decision on zoning going forward?
No.
I would hope not, because I agree with you, Mr. Clements, completely. We should not continually change zoning for the needs of entrepreneurs or developers. The last part you didn't say. But you did say that we should not continually change zoning. I couldn't agree more. So what I would ask is that there be some sort of layout of how the process will happen. Will there be some sort of official document or statement by the zoning administrator, by the town board? How will we know about it to make sure that it's done in a way that is fully informed? And I'm not suggesting that it won't be, but as it stands now, the last time we met here in this setting, it was going to be a discussion. They were going to apply. Mr. Sipian said anybody that could come down, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not disparaging anybody, but you know, you can shine a lot of things, but this is the same company that said 2 or 3 trucks one day, 5 to 6 trucks another day, electric trucks that don't exist. If you do the math, 25 million gallons, 365 days a year, divided by 3,000 gallons a truck, it's 22.8 trucks round trip a day. That's the math. I'm not making it up.
Well, the other thing that you have to know, though, is that there still hasn't been any process yet. As the supervisor said, they haven't come to us. And when they do, there will be a process that it goes through both the planning board and, if applicable, the zoning board. And that process will be open to everyone.
I understand completely. You understand my concern.
I do.
There's this sense in the newspaper that, you know, they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. They want to work with people. I get all that. But that's not what it's about. He could show me the Taj Mahal. That doesn't mean it's zoned for it. Bottom line.
Does stuff like this, before it goes before planning and zoning, is that on the website? Are people aware of it, that it's posted on the website?
Yeah, well, I'm sure. Well, Maury calls me all the time with what's going on. He will do his due duty to keep it public. And you're welcome to call me and or email me.
Well, you've been very receptive. I don't in any way intend to suggest you haven't.
Continue to be just as transparent and open as we progress forward.
Not the same day for me. I mean, you and I talk quite often, and if I know of anything, I'll try to keep you informed best I can. I don't think any of us by any means are trying by any means to hide this or sweep it under the rug. Everything else, we want it done above board and everything done the way it should be done and done properly. So
I just want to make sure that the concept of what the city needs and how much InBev's going to do for the area, and it doesn't somehow or another, overtly or not, influence the decision regarding zoning. And so I just have two last things. I just want to repeat, and I'm quoting from the zoning laws of the town of Queensbury. It's an area that adds to the town's rural character and should be protected as such. That's pretty clear to me. I would hope it would be to you. And the last thing I would ask is, I don't know where everybody lives on the board. A couple of you I do. Is there anyone on this board that would be happy to find out that there's going to be up to 22.8 trucks round trip up and down your road in perpetuity going forward when it's not zoned for it? Is there anybody who would not be concerned about that? Because I can tell you,
Because it would be a reduction on my road.
Yeah, I was going to say this.
yeah, I don't know where you live, but if it were zoned for it, but if it's not zoned for
Trucks
it,
going up and down the street all day, Dave.
right. But
The other day.
you understand my point.
I got log trucks every day. So.
Yeah, we all have our, I was thinking about that the other day. We all have our own.
I understand what you're saying, Dave.
Well, right. I didn't buy a house in that area,
Right.
not for a certain quality of life. And so, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Yes, sir. Come on down.
Go ahead, just add on to that. Gentlemen. Sean Crane, Town of Queensbury.
Please, John, please sit down.
Sean,
Sean?
thanks for everything you guys do.
Sean, and your last name?
Crane,
C-R-A-N-E?
C-R-A-I-N-E. It's
Thank you.
fade in my.
All right, thank you.
So, a couple questions on this topic. Would you classify Just Beverages as a commercial operation? Yes or no? Yes.
Where it's located in the city, I would, absolutely.
Would this, you would?
In the city, where it's.
What about up on the,
Selling,
what about the entire, what about everywhere there?
Well, John.
Sean.
selling, so
It's just Irish for John.
My brother's name's John.
Yeah. It'd be unfair for us to say anything until we got a submission from them to exactly what they're planning on doing up there, if they're planning on doing anything up there.
Well, let's say this, if they were planning on tapping, drilling a well, pulling water out of that well, and then trucking it, and then bottling it, and then selling it, would you consider that a commercial operation?
That determination's to be made by Craig Brown. He's the one who's given the authority to make that decision, and it's not this board's decision to make.
But would you classify it as, would you think of that as a commercial operation? I'm not saying it's your decision to make it, but would you classify
John,
that?
Let me ask you a question in return. If someone was up there and they put $14 million into 3 dams that dammed up reservoirs for the purpose of holding back water, for the purpose of feeding water down to a filtration plant that will supply a city with water, is that a commercial activity?
Absolutely.
No, it's a municipal, right? What about you? Would you classify this commercial?
I like your municipal.
So what do you think about tapping and drilling? I haven't gotten an answer from, what would you classify that as?
Their job.
I'm not saying it's your job, but what would,
Sean, one thing you have to realize, we can't give you an answer now because there's nothing been submitted to us. So it'd be unfair to you, it's unfair to the applicant, it's unfair to the public for us to start making judgments at this point in time. So we can't really answer you at this time.
And I agree with what John's saying, Sean, only because, I mean, it would be no different than judging another business that was opening somewhere within an industrial zone, within a commercial zone where, I mean, for us to judge anything on what they're doing without having their plan set in front of us isn't fair to anyone.
understood, and I'm saying just based on this, as a company coming up and tapping and drilling a well, tapping it, just based on what I'm saying right here, they're drilling a well, they're pulling water out of that well into a truck, and they're shipping it. Would you consider it selling it?
You're asking them.
I'm asking that if you would classify that, and it was theoretically anywhere, not necessarily here.
Well, you're welcome to ask the question, but we're not going to give you an answer. So you can ask it 5 times. We're not going to give you an answer, Sean. We can't.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
And the second question I have is, has Just Beverages discussed to you how much water they plan on pulling out of that well per year?
Were you here at the meeting?
No, I was actually on a business trip and I got a flight delay, so.
He suggested that, you know, one of the topics could be the limitation of truck routes or truck stops or truck ever. I don't know what it's going to end up being. We've got nothing in writing and submission. And when we do, that will start the process.
Okay.
Sean, I will keep you appraised of every single facet, every movement.
Appreciate it. Again, thank you for everything you do.
I will say, I think there's a contract with the city that they're under. I mean, you may be able to look at something in there to see what they're predicting or whatever, but nothing
Okay.
with the town.
Final point. Why don't we just have them dig a well on Queensberry property, and then we can make the money, and they could bottle it in Glens Falls.
Sean, I like it.
I don't think we have,
I like it. Yeah.
have you talked to Jim?
No, but I agree with David. I mean,
Well,
it's more about zoning and commercial operations and variances
some of the
than
questions you had here tonight, he went over at the meeting last Friday, and I'm sure that he would share that same information with you. He had charts and graphs.
But he's not going to be able to define if this is a commercial operation or not. He's going to tell us what we want to hear to make it sound to his best interest. I mean,
Well, yeah, but some of the other questions that you had, how much water are they going to take out of there?
I got his answer, but I want to know if you've ascertained how much water they're going to take out. If he's communicated that to you and you understand and you have a grasp of it.
Just
As soon as we get something from
Because my follow-up was going to be how they're going to monitor it. Who's going to be doing the volume control of that?
Yeah.
We don't know any of that.
Yeah.
We don't know yet.
Thanks, guys. I really
Thanks,
appreciate
Sean.
it.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Mike?
Thank you. Mike O'Connor from Purpose of Record. Late last week, I wrote a letter to John. I'm not sure if you even received it yet.
Mike, I got it about 3.5 hours ago.
Okay.
And I did share it with the board, but, they need time to process that
Okay.
request.
I'm wondering if I could set up a meeting at a workshop or something like this. The letter had to do with the establishment of a commercial operation on Luzerne Road, on the north side of Luzerne Road, next to or part of what was once Pornoski's lawn. Podnorski's, right.
Yeah, listen, Mike, if you give me a call, we'll have a workshop on the 11th, February 11th.
Okay. I can send somebody to that. I won't be in town on the 11th.
All right, well, and if that's not good, we're building, these guys love workshops. So we're probably going to have another one shortly after that.
All right, I'm gone from the 10th to the 17th, but I can send somebody. Tom Hutchins is the engineer for the project, and he probably has more answers than
I
do.
Give me a call or email me, Mike, and I'll put you on.
Okay,
I'm just saying that as a reminder. I don't want to forget.
okay, all right.
Well, two of us, one of us will remember.
Okay, we will remember. We'll send you an email tomorrow.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
all right. Okay, we do it then.
All right. Anybody else like to talk about town issue? Yes, John?
Good evening. For your record, my name is John Salvador. Before I comment as I plan tonight, I'd like to apprise the board of an extraordinary undertaking that the town clerk was able to perform this past week on my behalf. I had a very unusual FOIL request presented to her, and it was lengthy, it was involved, but in spite of being a month where she was busy collecting taxes, she was able to organize and get it done in a timely fashion, which was very beneficial to me. So I want you to know that.
Okay.
Last week, it came to my attention that State Supreme Court Justice Richard T. Alisi had rendered his final decision and order in the manner of the application of Ms. Jean Hoffman's Article 78 petition challenging the town's project review boards for not granting after-the-fact variances for excess of 3.5 feet in boathouse height and 278 square feet of excess sun deck area. I think Mr. Clemens is very familiar with this project. Mr. Medevere, I think you are also. In part, Judge Alisi ruled as of September 17th, 2014, that, quote, "This court declares that the town of Queensbury has no jurisdiction to regulate docks and boathouses on Lake George, and further holds that determinations of the town's zoning board of appeals and planning board relating to petitioner's boathouse are hereby vacated." There's no evidence in the record that the town has taken an appeal of this decision, so I think it's final. The court's declaration with respect to the town of Queensbury's lack of jurisdiction was based on the fact that the state's paramount authority on its navigable waterways is not limited to the regulation of navigation alone, but quote, extends to every form of regulation in the public interest. And the court relies on a 1957 Court of Appeals determination in that regard. So it's very, very old, if you will, predates the town's zoning, and in fact, you never had jurisdiction. That's the fact. Judge Alisi agreed with Jean Hoffman's contention that the state's navigation law preempted the town from ever having had authority to control the manner of construction and the location of boat docks and boathouses on Lake George. And that because Queensbury had not been granted express legislative authority to regulate said docks and boathouses, he went so far as to vacate all determinations of the town's ZBA and planning board with respect to the Hoffman Boathouse. Judge Alisi took extra care to clarify that even though the Hoffman Boathouse may have extended onto the shore of private property, the state's exclusive authority to regulate docks and navigable waters was not affected. I have here this in letter form to you, and I attach a copy of Judge Alisi's decision.
Okay, thank you, John.
I have one more comment.
Quick.
What with Judge Alisi's decision and order in Hoffman,
Quick is not in your vocabulary, is it?
Pardon me?
Quick. Is this something you can wrap up within your allotted time?
Mr. Stroud, you have entertained comment from other people in this town that have exceeded the 4 minutes.
This board has asked me to not be so generous.
Pardon me?
This board has asked me to keep the speakers to the time limit. Now, I'll tell you what, John. If we go through the public and they each get a chance to speak, I'll call you back. Is
Okay.
that fair?
Fine.
All right.
Speakers earlier tonight have gone 10 minutes and longer.
Jim, that you're out of order. That was a public hearing where there is no limit. All right. Is there anybody here who would like to speak to the board about town topics? Seeing none. John, not knowing that at the time. Okay? Come on back.
What with Judge Alisi's decision and order in Hoffman, on top of Judge Krogman's May 22nd, 2012 decision, order, and judgment upheld by the Appellate Division, 3rd Department in Hart Family, LLC, all having an origin in the 1957 Systems Properties Court of Appeals decision. It must now be unequivocally clear to the officials of this town that their jurisdiction does not extend into the navigable waters of the lake, whereby the town's lack of jurisdiction, quote, extends to every form of regulation in the public interest. Thus, I would expect, Mr. Supervisor, that you will undertake the procedures necessary for the town's regulatory program to conform with the court's orders in a manner sufficient to guarantee an effective and orderly discontinuance of the regulation of accessory structures on what are known to be the navigable waters of Lake George. It can be shown from daily water level readings maintained by the Lake George Park Commission that the navigable waters of the lake rise to an elevation known as the mean high water mark, that is 320.2 feet above mean sea level. Not to be overlooked is the fact that wetland areas contiguous to the lake are also considered navigable. Had you and your cadre of town officials, who must have been aware of Judge Alisi's September decision and order, there would have been sufficient time for the town assessor to make the appropriate adjustments on the property inventory cards before completion of the forthcoming reval database. Consideration might be given to the fact that all accessory structures, such as boat docks and boathouses, have long since been registered with the Lake George Park Commission for purposes of paying dock, wharf, and mooring fees for deposit in the Lake George Park Trust Fund. I'm thanking you in advance for your recognition of this. And I would hope that you set some program in motion to rectify this problem of the town's exceeding its authority and regulating boat docks and boathouses on Lake George. The fact that these accessory structures are inventoried by the town assessor leads to them being taxed. They are taxed, and it's improper. We pay a fee to the Park Commission, and one fee is enough. Thank you. I'll leave these copies with you.
Yes, that'll be fine. Thank you, John. Okay, town board discussions. Let's start with Tony.
No, I'm all set tonight. Thanks, John.
Brian?
I'm good.
Bill? All set. I'll make mine short then, too. I would like to announce that the town historian reports that this is the 253rd year the town was founded in 1762. And as to that topic, who founded the town? A group of Quakers from down near the Poughkeepsie area. They're the ones that bought Queensbury Patent, and settlement began here in 1763. And the settlement was, as I said, a group of Quakers. Well, Quakers do not believe in headstones. Headstones demark your existence here on earth and your identity, both of which are simply not important. The immortal world and the lack of identity, the becoming part of the greater being, is important. So no headstones. So we inadvertently found their cemetery through development on the corner of Bay and Quaker. We think we've identified the full extent of the burial grounds now, and there is a monument to the Quaker burial ground on the corner of Bay and Quaker. And thanks to Marilyn Van Dyke, our town historian, her efforts, we're now listed on the State Register of Historic Places. And the submission has been forwarded as a nomination to the National Register of Historic Places. So I want to thank Marilyn Van Dyke and all her efforts in this case. One last thing, talking about efforts, the annual efforts of our fire marshal, Mike Palmer, the yearly totals: 530 commercial inspections, 535 commercial re-inspections, 204 life safety inspections, 50 solid fuel equipment inspections, 649 field activity, public education, 18, and phone conferences, 3,907. So Mike and his crew have been very busy. I just thought I'd bring that to everyone's attention. And that does it for me. So, hearing nothing else, move to adjourn by Councilman Van Ness, seconded by...
I'll second it.
Councilman Clements. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, folks, for coming.